This program is brought to you by realestate.com.au. Keep moving with Australia's #1 address in property.
Welcome back. There are about 3,000 properties scheduled to be auctioned this week. That's down 10% on the same week last year. New South Wales will hold about 1,100 with 920 in Sydney. Victoria will hold about 1,400 with most in Melbourne. Queensland will hold about 250 with roughly 140 in Brisbane. South Australia will hold about 180 with virtually all of them in Adelaide. West of Australia, Tasmania and the NT will hold just 20 between them, and Canberra will hold 85. Take a look at the most viewed properties going to auction this weekend. In New South Wales, the top property is 65 Edith Street, Leichhardt. This two-bedder desperately needs to be renovated. Asking price $1.35 million. Top property in Victoria is number 24 Walker Avenue, Hampton. This three-bedroom townhouse has been renovated. It's got 2 bathrooms, parking. Asking price of about $990,000. The top property in Queensland is 7 Saturnwood Place, Mountain Creek. This large 4-bedder on the Sunshine Coast has a heated saltwater pool, large living areas, plus storage for your caravan or boat. The top property in South Australia is 9 Curlew Court, Semaphore Park. Now, this 3-bedroom townhouse has panoramic lake views, large balcony, sits on about 100 square metres. And the top property in Canberra is 5 Clyde Place, Colleen. This 3-bedder sits on a large block in Canberra's northern suburbs. You could renovate it or move straight in. And the most viewed property on the REA Group website this week is a large home owned by former NRL player Corey Parker. The former Broncos player and his wife Margot bought this place back in 2023 for about $2 million. Since then, they've renovated it and are hoping to get around $2.8 million. The address is 66 Highview Terrace, Daisy Hill. And for more on property, I caught up with Eleanor Creagh from REA Group.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So just over 3,000 properties scheduled to go to auction this weekend. That is a little bit lower than this same week last year, although potentially a bit of uncertainty around the RBA interest rate decision this week, playing into vendors' decisions to maybe delay auctions for the next couple of weeks. Now, we have seen that auction clearance rates have actually strengthened in February relative to the last few weeks of 2024 and the closeout of the spring selling season, where we saw auction clearance rates really beginning to move a bit lower, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne. So we've seen that the expectations of this interest rate cut that we have clearly received this week have already boosted sentiment in the housing market, with auction clearance rates strengthening relative to the last couple of months of 2024.
Yeah, the Reserve Bank cut rates for the first time since November 2020. What does this sort of mean overall for sentiment for the housing market in general?
Now, we know that lower borrowing costs do generally stimulate housing demand, and it's likely that this move lower in interest rates will be positive for the housing market, positive for sentiment, likely boosting potential home buyer confidence, and of course increasing borrowing capacities. Now, whilst one interest rate cut doesn't move the needle a huge amount in terms of borrowing capacities, and of course the amount that those with a mortgage already actually save on their repayments, it is largely centred around that uplift to sentiment that we're going to see. So I think that boost to confidence, of course, is going to provide a renewed pulse to potential home buying demand. And as a result, we're likely to see those price falls that we've seen over the past couple of months reversing and renewed price growth resuming.
Yeah, are you starting to see more and more stock starting to come back onto the market again after that Christmas, New Year break?
So we do typically see that real estate markets go through that seasonally quiet period towards the end of December with the Christmas holidays and, of course, January as well being pretty quiet for real estate markets. Now, February, we start to see activity coming back, the number of properties hitting the market increasing and really kicking off for that summer selling season. We are starting to see that listings have picked up. Home buying demand on the platform has also picked up as well. And I think with the interest rates having moved lower this week, we're also going to see a boost to confidence and a boost to sentiment that should drive renewed home buying demand and home price growth over the coming months.
Last year, Perth was by far one of the best performers across the country in regards to price growth. What regions are doing well at the moment?
Now, home prices in Perth were up around 20% last year. We have seen that although home prices in Perth were flat throughout the month of January, that does mark a really pretty large slowdown in the pace of price growth in Perth. Now, every other capital city, with the exception of Brisbane, saw prices falling in January, but it was regional areas that really led to charge. So that flight to affordability that we saw throughout 2024 really kicking into play in early 2025 as well, with regional markets seeing prices still lifting, whilst the capital city markets were seeing prices falling, with the exception of Brisbane and Perth.
Eleanor, Creagh, thanks for coming on the show. We are out of time.
Thank you for having me.